Sheffield is one of the largest cities in the United Kingdom. As such, it has plenty of traffic problems. It also has a comprehensive bus network and a modern light rail system, known as Supertram. The original trams in Sheffield, which ended in 1960, were much revered and gave long and proud service to the city. It is quite fitting that a modern version of the tramcar can be seen in the city today. One of the Supertram routes heads north from the city centre to the large Meadowhall shopping centre, some 3 miles away. Tram is one way of getting there. Train, which is the quickest of all, is another. You could go by car or by bus. Today, though, my journey takes a lot longer, although this is an edited film of that journey. After leaving the Fitzallen Square stop seen in the previous clip, trams cross over the 5-lane roundabout known as Park Square on a fine bridge. Trams to and from Meadowhall and Rotherham then use a viaduct high above the road. It is a nice feeling to speed along here on a tram at busy times, passing long lines of queuing traffic. On the other side of Park Square is Exchange Place, which at one time was the headquarters of the Sheffield Transport Department, for many years the providers of a comprehensive, cheap and efficient public transport network, buses and trams. Just to the right of this building, some roadworks had exposed old tram tracks abandoned almost 60 years ago, but still in situ beneath several new layers of tarmac. Across the road from Exchange Place is Sheffield Canal Basin. The Sheffield and Tinsley Canal opened in 1819 to link Sheffield with the navigable stretch of the River Don and ultimately the North Sea. Regular commercial traffic ceased in 1970 and the canal was disused for many years. In recent years, renovation has taken place and it is now possible to walk the towpath from Sheffield Canal Basin to Rotherham. The canal basin is now known as Victoria Quays. Many of the old buildings have survived, including the grain warehouse seen here, now flats, with an elderly clock which doesn't work, and the Merchants' Crescent, where shippers and hauliers once had their offices. Alongside the basin was Park Goods Yard, one of many railway yards in Sheffield in days gone by. Much of the old yard is now occupied by a Hilton hotel, with the railway arches now occupied by shops, offices and cafes. Probably the most impressive building is the Straddle Warehouse. As trade increased in the 19th century, a shortage of space for more warehousing meant that it had to be built on stilts over the basin, straddling it, and hence the name. There are boats aplenty on the basin. These two are self-catering accommodation, but are not cheap. There are also plenty of fish in the canal, but this was the only one I successfully photographed on this trip. This building, now a public house, was the office block of the Sheaf Works, the first integrated tool and cutlery works in the world. Opened by William Greaves and Son in 1823 at a cost of £430,000, which is equivalent to about £50 million now. Crude iron came in at one end by canal, and tools and cutlery out of the other end, almost half a mile away at Canal Bridge 3. The works passed through several owners before ending up with a Mr. Jonathan Mappin, who later formed a company with a Mr. Webb, this becoming a well-known goldsmith, silversmith and jewellery business still trading today as Mappin and Webb. All that remains of the Sheaf Works are this office building and the chimney. Alongside the chimney is the remains of the Great Central Railway, now reduced to a single freight line serving as steelworks to the north of the city. In the background is the Royal Victoria Hotel, all that remains of the Sheffield Victoria Station. Around the first bend in the canal is Bridge 4, still called the Midland Railway Bridge, almost 100 years since that company ceased to exist. This bridge carries the main railway line north from Sheffield. Around this bridge is some artwork by a street artist known as Affix, about whom I know nothing more. This, however, is not a piece of work by Affix. Just along from Bridge 4 is this rather strange signpost. Not sure what the chap was waiting for and how long he'd been there, but rather than this way, I went that way. At times this part of the canal can seem rather verdant, although the dominant plant appears to be the buddleia. Work on improving the towpath is ongoing, as shown by the dumpy bags on the right. The buildings on the left have listed status and were used for delivery and storage of iron bar by the Firth family, one of the major families in Sheffield steelmaking. Bridge 6 at Bacon Lane can give a deceptively rural image until panning out a bit reveals more old buildings, also listed, and in the background the great mass of the Hyde Park flats, built in the early 1960s. This view, looking the other way from Bacon Lane, is of the section of canal seen at the start of the Full Monty. Some of the buildings on the left have gone, as has the car in the canal, and the buddleia has proliferated. Just around the corner, after the next road bridge, the canal surroundings become more varied in their greenery. On this stretch, many of the steel works were built later and were more aligned to the road and rail networks, and to some extent turned their backs on the canal. At Attercliffe, Sheffield's modern tramway crosses the canal on this newly built bridge. Sheffield's original trams passed over the canal on the bridge from which I took this photograph. It was along this stretch that I saw a moving boat heading towards the canal basin. Oh, for a video camera. Here we are looking towards the city centre with one of Sheffield Hills in the background. Just a little way beyond here is a basin which originally served a small steelworks. It now has a nice show of yellow water lilies, and up above, a nice show of modern tramcars. The canal now passes Worksop Road on an aqueduct with the railway and tramway alongside. This railway line is freight only and sees little use, so the chances of getting a train on camera alongside a tram are quite slim. This is the road passing under the canal, with another recently closed steelworks in the background. Progressing northwards, there is a new canal basin, with both white and yellow water lilies in bloom, but not many boats. Behind the tree line here was Brown Bailey's, one of the largest steelworks in Sheffield. All gone now, replaced by sports facilities and open parkland. Also seen here is the plant that as a child I called bulrush, but which is more properly known as reed mace. Along this stretch the towpath is rather damp and sludgy, as can be seen. More maintenance needed here. Not a great deal of bird life was seen, possibly because of the large number of walkers, joggers and fishermen out on a beautiful August day. This was one of several moorhens I saw in this area. The variety of ducks on this stretch was seemingly limited to two, black or white. At the next bridge, Broughton Lane, the towpath crosses to the opposite bank, the modern bridge being shared with some impressive pipework. The road bridge in this shot is Sheffield's Outer Ring Road, seemingly not very busy at that moment in time. The footbridge over the canal also passes over the railway and tramway, as can be seen here. In the background is a large entertainment complex. More bulrush was seen in this area, as was a large amount of traveller's joy, the wild clematis, or, as I knew it as a child, clematis. It was a great sight to see so much of this in bloom in one place. The first lochs encountered are almost 3 miles from the canal basin, and are a flight of 8 called the Tinsley Flight, numbered 1 to 9. I shall explain later. This is the first of them. Beyond is Tinsley Marina, with plenty of boats moored, including a very small houseboat. Near number 5 loch is a plaque commemorating the role of the canal and its workers in the Second World War, when the canal was probably at its busiest. This photograph is taken from the northern gate of lochs 7 and 8. Originally 2 lochs, the railway bridge built some 60 years ago impinged on the headroom of number 8 loch, so the 2 lochs were combined into one with a much deeper drop than normal, and given the combined number 7 and 8. Hence there are now 8 lochs numbered 1 to 9. Traffic on the canal was still felt sufficient for this to be done at that time. The railway line led to the huge Tinsley marshalling yard, new in the 1960s, but now long gone apart from a few sidings. Just before loch number 9 is something a little exotic for an industrial northern city. This is a fig tree, the only one on the canal, although there are several more on the nearby River Don. It is thought that they originated from seeds in fig biscuits, finding their way into the local watercourses and taking a liking to the banks, aided by the warmth of the water emerging from the many steelworks alongside. This is a pumping station for the upper reaches of the canal, and just around the corner the peace is shattered by the Tinsley Viaduct. How I managed to get only one vehicle in shot, I am not at all sure. At this point the towpath continues to Rotherham, and the path to the left passes over the railway line and leads to Meadowhall South tram stop, seen here. Just north of this stop the tramway crosses the River Don, with the double-decker row bridge still in view behind. Turning to the left is a dual carriageway road and car parks for that temple to Mammon known as Meadowhall. This is on the site of a giant steelworks called Hadfield's, where once were made many specialist steel castings. Hadfield's was particularly known for specialist track work for railways and tramways all over the world. At this point, I have a choice. Do I walk across to Meadowhall and do lots of shopping? No, not my sort of thing. Do I walk back along the canal to Sheffield? Wouldn't mind, but I don't think my legs would take it. I could catch a bus back to Sheffield. Okay, I suppose, but my preferred form of travel is the tramcar. Here's one now, although unfortunately this one was on test and didn't stop. Never mind, there was another one behind, and that took me smoothly and comfortably and quickly back into the city centre.